All right, so good day, students. How are you all doing today? I hope you're all doing well in this time of crisis. And due to the earthquake protocol, we will not be conducting our classes face to face. So we will find a way to still progress with our class, okay? And for that, because of that, we are going to be conducting our discussion through this pre recorded video. This will serve as your final topic for the subject oral communication. And our discussion for today is all about the types of speeches according to purpose and delivery. So I hope you are ready to listen and pay close attention to this discussion because, again, this is your final topic for oral communication. So, first and foremost, speeches can be classified into two main ways. Okay? Two. First is by purpose, which means why the speech is delivered. So in Bisaya, it means tumong. Unsay rason nganong i-deliver nimo ang speech. And the second way in which speech can be classified is by delivery, which means how the speech is presented, or in Bisaya, giunsa nimo pag-deliver ang imong speech. Knowing both helps speakers choose the right tone, words, and approach. So it is very important to study the different types of speeches so that we will be able to deliver better quality speeches in the future. Okay? So first and foremost, the first type of speech is speech by purpose. Okay, under speech by purpose, number one, we have the informative speech. The informative speech, it is designed to educate or enlighten the audience by presenting information, facts, data, or explanation. So from the word itself, class, informative speech, this means that this speech is simply purpose to inform. Alright? Okay, so in Bisaya, naa kay gipahibalo. Okay? So, unsa may mga example aniya? What are the different examples of informative speech? Number one, a teacher explaining photosynthesis. Okay? So, if a teacher is discussing in front of the class, he or she is giving information. So, what he or she is doing is he or she is giving an informative speech. So say for example, what I am doing right now, I'm giving you a discussion on the different types of speeches. I'm giving you information. So what I'm doing right now is the informative speech. Another example, a student presenting a report on Philippine literature. So again, sharing information. Next, a tour guide describing historical landmarks, a company leader explaining new workplace policies, a scientist presenting climate research findings. Okay? So it is simply giving information and then that's it. Okay? That's it. And then tips on how to give quality informative speech is to be clear, accurate, and well organized. So always be sure that the information you're giving is clear, meaning to say that the audience can pick up on what you are trying to say, what information you are trying to convey. Okay? And of course, accurate, meaning it is true. Do not give false information like fake news. And then make sure that it is well organized. It is structured in a way that it is coherent and can be easily understood by our audience. Next is use visuals or examples to make information easier to grasp. So same as what I did with my discussion today, I gave you some examples in order for you to understand what informative speech really means. Okay? So our second type of speech, according to purpose, is the persuasive speech. So this is quite different from the informative speech because it is purposed to convince the audience to accept an idea, opinion, or take specific action. So in short, a persuasive speech, from the word itself, persuasive, it is purposed to persuade, or in Bisaya, mangumbinsi. Okay? Kanang nakagi-convince. You are trying to convince the audience to believe or to do something based on what you are saying. A good example of this is a politician campaigning for votes. So, for example, in the near future, we will be conducting our SSLG and ACES election. So, what the candidates will do is they will go to each room and then try to convince the student body, try to convince you to vote for them. That is an example of persuasive speech. You are convincing the audience, you are persuading the audience, okay? Another one is a student advocating for environmental protection, a lawyer presenting a closing argument, a commercial promoting a product, a youth leader encouraging participation in community service. So a good example, another good example for the persuasive speech is when a lawyer is presenting a closing argument or basically arguing in court. So we all know what lawyers do. Their job is to convince the judge to side with their clients. Or good, they're going to present evidences, they're going to make their arguments logical in order for their speech to appeal to be true and convincing. Another one is a commercial promoting a product. So those propagandas that you will be seeing on television, like the commercials on surf powder and etc., that is an example of a persuasive speech, because again and again they are trying to convince you, okay, to convince you to buy their product. Okay, so tips on how to properly conduct a persuasive speech: use emotional appeal, logic, and credibility. Okay, emotional appeal, it is very important to connect with your audience emotionally when you're giving a persuasive speech. And then logic, okay, so show your audience that what you are trying to say is actually logical and is the right thing to do. Next is credibility. So make sure that you are also credible. So for example, if your teacher is trying to persuade you to do something, more often than not, you will believe them, you will obey them compared to having your classmates convince you or persuade you. So that's why always be credible, have some credentials, have some background knowledge on what you are trying to convince, okay, what you're trying to say. Next is provide strong evidence and end with a call to action. So provide strong evidence. Make sure that you are not merely saying, but you are also presenting evidence as to why the audience should be convinced to believe or to follow your instructions. Okay, that is persuasive speech, a speech intended to convince or persuade the audience. Next, number 3, we have what we call the entertaining speech. Okay, so this is purpose to amuse or engage the audience, often through humor, stories, or light-hearted topics. So speeches class, they are not limited to serious topics. Let's say, for example, informative speech or persuasive speech. We also have what we call an entertaining speech, which is purpose to make the audience laugh, smile. Okay, it is a light-hearted speech. Okay, so example of this is a wedding toast with funny anecdotes, and then a comedian stand-up performance. So a good example of this one would be the show you probably want to watch every day, like the show Showtime, wherein the greatest example of a comedian is Vice Ganda. Okay, so what Vice Ganda is doing on stage is actually a kind of speech, and that speech is called an entertaining speech. That's why, if you may have noticed, you are always smiling and laughing at Vice Ganda when he or she is conducting her speech. Okay, and then next is a master of ceremonies at a school event. So yes, MCs, they do some entertaining speeches as well, such as give jokes to make the audience be amused. Okay, so in Bisaya pa pakadili boring ang ilahang pag-host. Okay, and then a storyteller performing a folk tale, a humorous speech at a reunion or celebration. Another good example of this would be a storyteller. Okay, so storytelling, that is an example of an entertaining speech, telling stories. And then tips on how to properly do entertaining speeches: keep your tone light and natural. Okay, so unlike persuasive and informative speech, wherein more often than not, you will be giving a serious and formal tone, you'll be keeping your tone light and natural for entertaining speech. And then, of course, know your audience's sense of humor. So, know your audience. Okay, for example, do not give offensive jokes to people with, for example, if your audience are disabled people, so do not tell jokes about their disabilities, because might as well share some jokes on other topics, because that would be offensive to them. And then blend humor with meaning if possible. And then our fourth kind of speech according to purpose is the demonstrative speech. So in simplest terms, this is to show or teach the audience how to do something through demonstration or step-by-step explanation. So this is quite similar to informative speech, but informative speech is purpose to just give information, while demonstrative speech is purpose to teach you how to do something. So a good example of this is a cooking demonstration. Okay, so if your parents are teaching you how to cook and they will be telling you, okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to heat up the pan and then put in the oil and then put in the fish. That in itself, what they are doing is called a demonstrative speech. And then another example is a student showing how to make an origami crane. So do you know what an origami is? It is folding papers to make it shape like an animal or plants or something like that. So a student showing you how to make, for example, your classmate will be teaching you how to do one. That is an example already of a demonstrative speech. And of course, a more common example is a YouTuber teaching you how to edit a video. And not just how to edit a video. I know that you've all done it in your lives wherein you've searched in YouTube how to do something. So that what they are doing, what the YouTubers are doing there is that they're giving you a demonstrative speech, teaching you how to do something step by step. Next is a science teacher performing an experiment, a fitness trainer demonstrating proper exercise. And then tips on how to do demonstrative speeches effectively is use visual aid or actual material. So this is very important. If you're doing demonstrative speeches, do not just say it. Okay, have the specific materials wherein you can show your audience how to do something and then let them do it and then correct them if they make mistakes. Explain each step clearly and logically. Okay, so explain to them clearly so that they will not misunderstand what you are trying to say. Okay, so moving on to the types of speeches by delivery. Okay, so the types of speeches by delivery is quite different compared to the types of speeches by purpose. Because again, when we say purpose, it means why. Okay? It means to say why. Why are you conducting the speech? Unsa may rason. Whereas type of speech by delivery means delivery, meaning sa kung giunsa nimo nga pagpaagi. Okay, in what way are you going to deliver your speech? Okay, so the first and most basic type of speech by delivery is what we call the manuscript speech. The manuscript speech means that the speaker reads the entire speech word for word from a prepared text. So this kind of speech is merely reading. Okay, so you are not memorizing anything, you are just holding on to a copy and then you are simply reading it. A good example of this would be some welcome address during events wherein the speaker would be bringing notes and would merely be reading what he or she intends to say. So example of this is the President's State of the Nation address, or what we call SONA. The president would be merely reading. Okay, nagbasa kasi wa siya lang gibuhat, iguan niya gibasa. A news anchor reading a broadcast. So fun fact, okay, what you see on television, on news television, they are actually reading something. They're not doing it impromptu or extemporaneously. They are just reading something. It's called a teleprompter. Okay, a priest reading a homily or prayer. So when you do novenas or rosaries, you are bringing this little book with you in which you will be reading it to a microphone. That is an example of a manuscript speech. And a formal eulogy read at a memorial service. So again and again, when we say manuscript speech, the speaker is merely reading. Okay, he or she is merely reading. And then tips: maintain eye contact occasionally. So it doesn't mean, class, that when you are reading your speech is you will be facing your script all the time. You have to maintain eye contact. Okay, try to glance at your audience occasionally, as well as glance at your script occasionally. Try to balance it out. And then practice to sound natural, not monotone. Okay, so despite you merely reading your script, it is important to make it sound natural and not monotone. Meaning to say that even though you are only reading, you will sound like you are actually speaking as if it is memorized or rehearsed. Okay, and then our second type of speech according to delivery is what we call memorized speech. Okay, the memorized speech is written, memorized, and recited without notes. So compared to the manuscript speech. The memorized speech is actually from the word itself, memorized. Okay, so instead of you simply reading the speech, you will be memorizing the speech and then delivering it to the audience. So an example of this would be a student performing a declamation piece. So if you don't know what a declamation is, it is somewhat like a kind of presentation where you will be memorizing lines, and then you will be portraying a certain character, and then you will not be bringing any notes. Okay, you will be memorizing it. And then another example is an actor reciting a monologue. So actors, as what you might have seen in television, they do not bring with them notes. They memorize their lines. So those are examples of memorized speech. Another is a performer reciting a poem from memory. Again, a memorized poem. A teacher memorizing an inspirational quote for graduation. And then tips on how to properly do memorize speech. First and foremost, do not just memorize, internalize the message. Okay, this is very important because when you memorize something and you try to deliver it, more often than not, you will forget a few words here and there. So it's important to internalize or understand the message so that in cases where you forget the exact words, you may just use some other words instead that would still mean the same thing, that would still give the same message. And then use gestures and eye contact to engage with the audience. Okay, do not just stand still there. Use your gestures and eye contact. Use your hands, walk around a little bit, occupy the spaces on the stage. And then for our third kind of speech, here we have what we call the impromptu speech. Okay, a speech delivered without prior preparation or notes, spontaneous and on the cuff. Okay, so just a fun fact, this is actually my favorite type of speech. Okay, I really love impromptu speeches. Again, from the word itself, impromptu, meaning that there will be no preparation whatsoever. You will be given a topic, or you will be told to talk about this, and then on the spot you will stand on your feet and then talk about it. Okay, no notes, no preparation whatsoever. You will be delivering it on the spot. Example, a student suddenly asks to share their opinion in class. So and a good example of this is when we will be discussing in class, and then I will immediately ask you, okay, can you share your opinion on this kind of topic? And you will stand up and then immediately share your opinion. Okay, a teacher giving an unplanned motivational talk, a guest asked to say a few words at a party, a meeting participant answering a surprise question, a graduation speaker called unexpectedly. Again, class, those are just examples, but the main thought here is that this kind of speech is delivered without preparation at all, on the spot. And then tips on how to do impromptu speeches. First and foremost, stay calm and organized. Use the PREP method. Okay, so the PREP method stands for point. Okay, so if you are tasked to deliver an impromptu speech, go directly to your point. Okay, what is it that you are trying to say? And the next is reason. Give the reason as to why you believe that your point is correct. And the next is give examples. Okay, and then after your examples, go back to your point to conclude it once again. Okay, so it's as easy as that. And then tips, speak naturally and confidently. Confidence is such a very important factor when giving impromptu speeches, because you just can't be tasked to deliver something on the spot and be all clunky and stutter kanang magkanga-kanga ka, dili na ka makatingog. Okay, so it's very important that you are confident with your delivery. Okay, meaning confident, meaning di ka mag-uwaw-uwaw. Okay, di ka magkanga-kanga, dili ka mahadlok. Inana, you believe in your potential. And then of course, our last kind of speech is what we call the extemporaneous speech. So this one, there is actually a contest for this one called extemporaneous speaking contest. Okay, so I'll be sharing you a few stories about that later on. So but extemporaneous speech means it is prepared and practiced in advance but delivered using brief notes or an outline. It is not memorized as well. So when we say, okay, so take note of this, when we say manuscript speech, there is a lot of preparation. Okay, like you will be writing the speech and you will be reading it. When we say memorized speech, there will be an even bigger preparation, because not only will you be writing your speech, you will also be memorizing it. But when we say impromptu speech, there is absolutely no preparation at all. But when we say extemporaneous speech, there is little preparation. Okay? So a good example of this would be during an extemporaneous speaking contest, wherein, for example, contestants will be given a topic. So say, for example, you will be given a topic about climate change. Okay? So you will be given 5 minutes to prepare your speech, meaning you will not be composing your entire speech altogether. You will be merely writing your outline, writing your bullet points, and then after 5 minutes, you will deliver your speech without memorizing it. Okay, you will only be following the notes or the outline that you give, and in some cases, you will not be able to bring that note to the front. Okay, so you are given little preparation. So let's say, for example, again, 5 minutes to prepare, and then afterwards you are going to deliver your speech. Okay, so impromptu, no preparation at all. Extemporaneous, there is preparation but only a little bit. Example of this would be a student's final oral presentation. So for example, I will be giving you a topic. Okay, so tell me about why the communication process is important, and then I will be giving you 3 minutes to think of an answer, and then after 3 minutes you will present it to the class. That is an example. A contestant in a speech competition using cue cards. So as what I have given you an example already, that in competitions you will be given a topic and a brief amount of time to prepare. A business leader presenting a proposal. A teacher giving a planned lesson with reference notes. Okay, so if a teacher is only following reference notes, that is also an example of an extemporaneous speech. A church speaker delivering a sermon with key points outlined. Okay, you're just writing outline, not an entire speech, and you are using it as your guide. And then tips. Practice enough to know the flow and not the script. So a good tip for delivering extemporaneous speech is do not memorize it. Okay, it's a no-no to memorize extemporaneous speech. What you are going to do is you are merely going to know the flow. Okay, what are you going to say for the introduction, what are you going to say for the body, and what are you going to say for the conclusion, and then that's it. Just the idea, just the concept, just the thought, and not the word for word memorization. And then make eye contact and connect with the audience. So again, it's not just in this kind of speech, but in all kinds of speech, is very important to make eye contact and connect with the audience. So key takeaways to summarize everything that we have talked in this lesson so far. When we say types of speech by purpose, again and again, we mean why the speech is delivered, whether it be to inform, to persuade, to entertain, or to demonstrate. And when we say by delivery, it means how the speech is presented, whether you will be presenting a manuscript speech wherein you will be merely reading what you have written, or a memorized speech wherein you have written your speech and memorized it and then delivered it, an impromptu speech wherein you have no preparation at all, you'll be immediately told to speak on a topic, or an extemporaneous speech wherein you will be given a few minutes of preparation before you are going to deliver your speech. And always remember, everyone, that a good speaker matches purpose with delivery to effectively communicate with the audience. So say, for example, you will be tasked to deliver an informative speech using a manuscript type of delivery. So what you're going to do is you're going to be matching it. Okay, you're going to be writing a very informative speech, and then you're going to be reading it properly to the audience. Okay, so match how you are going to deliver it why you're going to deliver it with how you are going to deliver it. And then for our performance tasks, okay, so we will be having a performance task. And for our performance task, you will be given the option to do it, if you like, to do it individual or to do it as a group. For our individual performance tasks, so let's say, for example, you do not want to be a part of a group because for you would not grow, okay, having to rely on your teammates, so you want to do it, and you want to do an individual performance task. So what you're going to do is you are going to deliver a memorized speech. Okay, so very easy. Okay, very easy at all. Not impromptu, not extemporaneous, but just memorized speech. So you may choose any topic that you like. Okay, so say, for example, you want to tell us an interesting story about your life, or you want to share your opinion on love, on pain, or anything, basically any topic that you'd like. You are going to write first. Okay, write your speech and then memorize it. and then print it on a long bond paper and pass it to me during the deadline, because I will be using it as a reference to check whether you have actually memorized it. So by the time when you will be giving your memorized speech, you will give your printed speech to me, and I will be following it thoroughly, checking if what you say or what you deliver will actually coincide with what you have written there, okay? And then it must be at least 300 words. So do not give me a very short piece. Give at least 300 words. Actually, 300 words is still very short. Okay? That is to be honest. But make sure that your speech is complete. Like there's an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And then for the criteria, we have 5 points for the content, which means to say that what is the message of your speech, okay? If the message of your speech is complete and is actually quite good, then you will get 5 points. Delivery, meaning to say how you delivered your speech, whether this refers to your confidence, your correct pronunciation, use of hand gestures, eye contact towards the audience. And then for attire, of course, you cannot just deliver a speech wearing basic t-shirt. You have to be wearing your formal attire. And then mastery, of course, whether you have memorized it completely and whether what you said in front coincides with what you have written on paper. The deadline for this will be on Tuesday, October 21. So next week, Tuesday, we will be having a memorized speech presentation. And then, yeah, I hope you're excited for that, because I am. And then for the group performance task, if you will choose, if you're not comfortable with delivering a memorized speech, then I will also give you an alternative, okay, which will be the group performance task. So what you're going to do is you're going to do an interview, okay? So in a group, okay, so I will be sending you your groups later on. So in a group, conduct a 3 to 5 minute video interview with a public speaker you know. The interview must begin with a short introduction of the interviewee, like name, occupation, and background. Then the interviewee should answer the following questions. Okay, so before we proceed with our questions, so let me simplify the instructions. So basically, you are going to find someone whom you know is a public speaker, or at least have experience doing public speaking. And then you are going to start your video with a short introduction as to kinsa man siya, okay? Who is he or she? Unsa iyang name? Unsa iyang occupation? And unsa iyang background? So say for example, if he or she is a teacher, then tell us in the video that he is a teacher from anani mo ni mo na. And then here are the questions that the interviewee needs to answer. What was your favorite public speaking experience? Okay, so the interviewer will be sharing their favorite public speaking experience. So say for example, for me, my favorite public speaking experience was hosting the graduation ceremony of of the school where I practiced teaching, which was Taas MNHS, or Teutimo A. Abellana Senior Memorial National High School, otherwise known as kanang skulahan diha sa Bulok-Bolok. Okay, it was my favorite public speaking experience. And then, what public speaking tips can you give to us students? So another thing is, what are the tips? Okay, how can you help us? What information is helpful for us to know in order for us to become better at public speaking? Okay, so simple as that. And then upload your video on YouTube and send the video link to the class group chat. So same as before, as what we've done with all our performance tasks, you will just upload it on YouTube and then send the link. Criteria: presentation and editing, that would be equal to 5 points, meaning to say that, of course, make your video beautiful, okay? Do not just pass an unedited video. So edit out unnecessary information. And the presentation, it must be clean and presentable. If you're using a template, it must be clean, okay? And the next is interview conduct and professionalism, meaning to say that you will be acting professionally when you will be doing the interview, okay? So dili ka nang pangbukdagulan lang ang interview, dapat formal siya, okay? Interview conduct. Behave well, meaning you show good manners and right conduct. And then content and insight. Of course, when we say content and insight, this refers to whether the interviewee was able to provide you with the information that is necessary, just like what was his or her favorite public speaking experience, and then some tips that you can give to you students. And of course, collaboration, meaning to say that the group leader will be giving a rating for each group member, whether or not they help in creating their performance task. Okay, the deadline for this will be on Monday, October 27, meaning to say that you will be submitting this video after the final exam. Okay? So, because during that time, during your semestral break, that will be the time when I will be computing your grades. So that will also be the time wherein you will be submitting your group performance task. Okay? So I hope that I have made myself clear and that you have learned something in this video. And then yeah, that's it. Keep safe, and until next time, until we meet again face to face for some questions, clarifications, concerns, you may also message me on our group chat on Messenger if you have some clarifications and concerns. Okay, so that would be all, and I will see you next time, hopefully inside the classroom, but if not, because of the earthquake protocol, then we will still be conducting our classes online. That would be all. Keep safe, everyone, and God bless.